Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here, with my next Shadow of Kyoshi chapter analysis video. This one is going to be for chapter 21, which is called Housecleaning. This is the chapter that brings the political arc in the Fire Nation to an end, in that it's a chapter that is a few pages mainly only between Kyoshi and Fire Lord Zoryu. Very interesting conversation, very interesting transformation for Zoryu as a leader. Just that one act has just solidified him as being a leader now, and he's running with it 100%. It's so interesting to see the change in the character here, how different he is from the character we first met all those chapters ago, after Kyoshi made her big mistake with his brother. The other thing here is, of course, that we have to deal with the aftermath of what's happened, what Zoryu has actually done. It's turned him into a good leader, of course, but what is he now planning to do? The Sawan clan basically has been captured by everyone. Is he just going to let them be, keep them in prison, or if he's executing Yun, why isn't he going to execute the Sawan? That's the threat now. And what position does Kyoshi place herself in now that she realizes that Zoryu is willing to just kill people to kind of maintain peace? So a fascinating back and forth here. Whereas previously, like, Kyoshi was kind of like the dominant one of the two in their previous interactions, just because Zoryu was just ineffective completely as a leader, completely unable to make any sort of a decision. So Kyoshi, even though she herself hasn't been like making the perfect decisions in this book, has at least been making decisions, acting, but not Zoryu. So we go to the war room here. That's where she finds Zoryu, and there's one other person here. There is an artist who is painting Zoryu here, doing a sketch of him for some sort of a painting at some point, and Kyoshi is the one to say to this artist to leave. And in the past, I love how they do this dynamic. It's a really short little bit here, just the start of the second page of the chapter. Just the artist checks with the Fire Lord. The Fire Lord then is like, you can go. Then the artist leaves. A complete turnaround from the dynamics from before. Whereas one of Kyoshi's biggest mistakes from before was her being the one to dismiss Cheijin in front of the Fire Lord, where the rule is the person of higher rank is always the one to dismiss someone from a conversation. So now Zoryu is finally, taking command, and more than that, because it's less that he did that himself, and more that his subjects now look at him as someone that they have to look to for permission in these situations, whereas he didn't have that respect from before. But just the ruthlessness at which he sort of has dispatched the Sawan, the success seemingly at having got Yun, all of a sudden it's a complete contrast. Whereas people are sort of maybe before okay with not doing everything in the correct way around Zoryu because he's not the strongest leader. Now it's like, I can't immediately leave just because the Avatar told me to do so. I have to check with my Fire Lord first. And he really likes that. Before today, she would have walked straight out of this room without a second glance at me. I'm making progress. So a lot of stuff that we get through pretty quickly here. Where did you find the double? So just addressing the whole situation of this double. Master Jianju and Yun themselves advised me on how to restart the program back before I knew you existed. They advocated the usefulness of having a decoy for Yun. Apparently the practice is good for making speeches and foiling assassins. So straight away, as part of Yun's sort of assassination training, how to be a killer, he's, I suppose, also learned about sort of political assassinations and the best way to avoid them, foil them, and so on. So this is very interesting of like, okay, the reason they have a perfect sort of doppelganger for Yun is because it was planned in the first place, with the Fire Lord meant to be a great ally for Yun as the Avatar. Why don't we have a decoy for him here in the Fire Nation, just in case something happens there? Because they were doing really well. Like, Zoryu admitted that he really liked Yun from before, so this definitely fits with everything going on. And he points out that people aren't as unique as they believe themselves to be, and the Fire Nation is a populous country. You should check with the Earth King. You'd be surprised at who he has copies of lying around. And then he looks at Kyoshi and is like, I don't think anyone could find your like, so worry not. There will only ever be one Avatar Kyoshi. And just the confidence that he's speaking to her with, that he's willing to sort of almost like just insult her here in front of her. Like, obviously in this case he's pointing out the fact that like Kyoshi's like a 17-year-old girl who's like 7 foot tall. Of course they're not going to find anyone who resembles her, but also just like no one could ever be like you, Kyoshi. Like your mistake has given me the perfect opportunity to, gain such power among my people here. So he's completely different in this scene. The confidence that he has, and we'll double down on that as we go through the pages here. So she asks, what will happen to the Sauwan? And this is where we get the answer. I will round up and arrest the ones here in the capital. The other clans will do the same across their home islands on behalf of the Fire Lord, and then I'll have them killed. And he plans to like lay siege to Mainka Island, where they're the home of that clan, and he'll be able to starve them out, even if it takes a long time. He is completely set on wiping the Sauwan clan out of the Fire Nation, and Kyoshi realizes that this is something that she needs to stop. And he notes that this is better than what would have happened. What would have happened if, I hadn't done what I did, it was that like 3/5 of the clans would have turned against me, and it would have been even worse. War in the Fire Nation, this way only one clan has to get taken out. But this is where you get into the idea of like the Sauwan were planning something, but they didn't actually get to properly executing it. The problem that they made was that they were extending a little bit too far. They were making themselves look a little bit bad with almost all of the clans. And because they were prosperous, no one was immediately going to defend against them. But the second that they are seen to do something dishonorable and look bad, everyone turns against them. And even though they're strong, they can't defend against the might of like all of the other clans together. And so that's what they're being punished for now, is just extending just a little bit too far. Huazo's plans improve the Sauwan clan, but also put them a little bit too much in the spotlight. And it's just that whole thing of, what is it, the nail that stands up is the one that gets hammered down. And that's exactly what's happening here. So, yeah, Kyoshi points out the obvious flaw to this whole thing. What if the real Yoon shows up again? Won't you be exposed as being a fraud in what you've just said? And that's when he says, oh, I know, the Fire Nation would tear itself apart in chaos and confusion. All I've really done is buy you some more time to find him. You're not done assisting me, Kyoshi. You don't want my nation to suffer any more than I do. You and I are still in this together. And she realizes what this statement has just done. He's holding the country sort of hostage against her, of you now have the choice to assist me and complete what's happened here, or the Fire Nation will go to war. Kyoshi's choice is take out Yoon, end the threat of the real Yoon, and so the only ones who will suffer are that the Sauwan clan will remain not locked up or potentially killed, or you ignore Yoon, you don't assist me, and the Fire Nation goes to war once it's revealed that it's all been a lie. And I really like that this character who just hasn't acted at all this book is willing to make such a gambit here, such a confident gambit with Kyoshi, knowing that she's going to want to do the right thing here. And I love the sentence after this. It's so great, and it's kind of like defining of, I suppose, a lot of the way they've presented higher ups from almost all of the nations. She had been so worried about turning into Jeonju, as if the Earth Sage had been a special breed of monster, threatening to be reborn through her and only her. How laughable a notion. The fact of the matter was that the world grew Jeonjus by the bushel. They sprouted from the soil and multiplied from the seas. People sought to emulate Jeonju with every fiber of their being. And at this point she realizes that one of the big mistakes she's made in this has been that she's basically violated her Daofei oaths. That in siding so heavily with Zoryu in this, she's sort of become a lackey for him. And she realizes that if her Daofei brothers and sisters were around, they would be advocating that she be, punished by many knives, ripped apart by thunderbolts for, just going so far in on, one of the world leaders, basically, who they don't agree with. And it's at this point I think you really see this is where her complete distrust, her unwillingness to work with world leaders really comes in. This completely, I think, helps to explain why she acts the way she does when she goes to meet the 46th Earth King, or was it the 42nd Earth King? Um, in the peasant uprising of Bossing Say incident. Um, that the fact that she's so like unwilling to properly listen to him. She'll make a compromise with him, but she is not going to just be like, you called me here, I'll do whatever you want. No, I'm here to make a deal with you. And that's the approach she takes from sort of this point on, after she's been so like taken advantage of in this situation. I really like that that whole dynamic of she's so afraid of herself becoming Jonju, but then she realizes that Zoryu has just become just like that right in front of her. She's seen it happen right in front of her eyes. He was nothing like that before, but in one move, he's become exactly that sort of character, and he's willing to wipe out an entire clan. He's to threaten the Avatar into doing what he wants. He's willing to sort of risk his nation. It's big development for Zoryu for sure. So she demands, "I want clemency for the Sauron if I'm going to help you." Why should I give it? Is his answer, of course. Do you think that if they succeeded in taking the throne, Cheijin would have me sent gently into exile? Kind of pointing out that if the other side had won, they'd kill me, so why shouldn't I kill them? And so Kyoshi points out, punish them in accordance for their tricks, but not for an act of treason they didn't commit. There will be no wholesale massacre, which is a fair point. Punish them for their like developing of something, their manipulations that they've been doing in the other clans and setting up a coup. Don't punish them for a coup that didn't actually happen. You stopped it before it happened. Acknowledge that. Just punish them only for what actually has happened. It's a very fair approach, but he says that he'll look weak. And this is where it's like, any more demands? Like, I basically can't agree to this, but do you have anything else? And he's like, yes. She says, Yun's decoy. I want him sent home alive and rewarded for his troubles. And he's not going to agree with this. No, I have to hold an execution. I need a body, or else the honor of the Fire Nation goes unsatisfied. And he's like, I've heard stories about you, Kyoshi. I know the things that you've seen. What do you care if a single peasant lives or dies? I like that he's sort of done some research on her. He knows what she's been up to, like at the start of this book and so on, with how she handles Dao Fei. And he's just pointing out that, like, you do brutal stuff as well. Why are you being so defensive about it in this situation? I care more for his life than I do yours right now. And so we get the threat here. Kyoshi threatening the Fire Lord to get what she wants here. Let me make myself perfectly clear. You live on top of what I control. Your islands are surrounded by my waves. You fill your very lungs at my discretion. So if I hear any news about Yun being executed, you will truly learn what it's like when the spirits forsake you in the face of the elements. And Zoryu does cower in fear before her. Like, you see a little bit of the old Zoryu come out here. But he very quickly realizes that, oh, he's different now. He's the Fire Lord. He shouldn't be. He can't cower in front of the Avatar here. And realizes this is just a bluff. She won't actually hurt me. She can't hurt me. And so he just says, let me give you a bit of advice for when you next see Yun. I've thought a great deal about this ever since he first showed up. And I think I know why you've been having so much trouble against him. You don't understand his feelings. And he's like, Yun hates us. Everything he's done so far is because he hates us. You, me, the lieutenant. Kyoshi says, that's not true. We were his friends. He's been acting out of vengeance. He said so. And Zuyu's like, no. I don't think he realizes it himself. Consider his deeds, Kyoshi, not his words. Who has he been causing the most pain? For starters, me. By my reckoning, he's angry at me for daring to rule my country without his help. He's also furious with the lieutenant for having her mother's unconditional love. What Jonju gave him wasn't anything of the sort. And then there's you, Kyoshi. Yun has never been able to let go of the fact that he's not the Avatar. To this day, he agonizes over what should have been. He grieves for his lost destiny, and that grief has turned into blame. Jonju and the others might have lied about his avatarhood, Kyoshi, but the only one person who truly stole it from him, you. I really like this because as much as this seems very obvious, and I think a lot of people in speculation for this book before it came out were pointing out, like, how's Yoon going to feel about Kyoshi, given that the reason he's not the Avatar is because Kyoshi is. Even though it's unfair, shouldn't it, like, blame her for something she had no control over? It is the core root of his problem. And I love how they've waited until, like, one of the last chapters in the book to actually bring this up, and the fact that it's now this newly confident Zoryu who's analyzed the situation, having seen Yoon. He knows Yoon as well. He's friends with him as well. He realizes now, like, it's all of these things together, but he hasn't said it yet, but it's clear from the fact that he hasn't really gone after you, Kyoshi. He's conflicted about his feelings for you, but that deep down, you both have to realize it, that the core issue here is, in a way, now that Jeonju out of the way, is you. It may not be fair or anything like that, but the reason he's not the Avatar, the reason he's so upset about what he doesn't have right now is because you are the Avatar. And it's this important thing for Kyoshi to have to realize before she goes into this confrontation with Yoon that the Fire Lord has basically forced her into here. That she has to go in knowing that between the two of them so far in their interactions, they have not addressed the fact that Kyoshi is the Avatar, and that's the reason Yoon isn't. And it's so interesting. He's the one to bring it up first. Yeah, he's punishing us, Kyoshi, for moving on from him, having the things he doesn't. And unless you accept the truth, sooner or later he's going to punish you in a way I can't even imagine. And she's like, I suppose you can tell all of this because you played him in Pai Sho. No, I can tell because I'm not blinded by the past like you two are. Maybe he's truly possessed by a spirit. It doesn't change what needs to be done. Now please, leave me. You have work to do, and I have the future of my country to plan. So, very, blunt to the point statements from Zoryu here, but completely true. That he's pointing out here that both, like, Rangi and Kyoshi holding out hope for Yoon is them thinking about the Yoon that he was in the past, and not properly analyzing the Yoon as he is now, and not realizing that he is different, he is changed. What happened to him, that old Yoon, you're not going to get him back. Even if he is possessed by a spirit, you're not going to get that person back. So the only thing that can be done, the thing that needs to be done for the Fire Nation, the sake of this plan succeeding, is that you have to go and move on from the past. Accept what, even if you didn't mean it, what you have done to Yoon, and take him down. And I love how blunt that is, and then this chapter ending with him dismissing her from his war room. That is great. The higher rank dismisses the lower rank, the Fire Lord dismisses the Avatar, and she leaves. Because this is what she has to do. She has to confront Yoon because she wants to know what's up. Is all of this true? Is he possessed or not? This is what we've been building up to all of this time. And now, the truth, people being more honest with her about it. Like, it's okay to hold out hope for Yoon. That's the dynamic you should have this whole book. But has Kyoshi been holding too much onto the Yoon from the past and not acknowledging who he is right now and why he is this way? And now she has to realize her own role in that. And I love that setup there of, like, who is this character here, Zoryu? Like, what a change in just, like, 2 chapters to go from being this very sort of meek, ineffective Fire Lord who you feel sympathy for because he's, like, unlucky times with just the way the crops and the seasons are going for the Fire Nation at this point. But then he makes this move that's brutal, and all of a sudden this guy has the Jeonju attitude down, of, like, willing to take out a whole clan. And the fact is, he could do that if he wanted to and receive, like, no blowback for it, because that's the way things are in the Fire Nation. The Sauwon, to all intents and purposes, have committed a major, like, blow against the honor of the overall Fire Nation. Everyone's against them now. No one would disagree with what happens to them. And Kyoshi is just like, what is happening here? I can't believe I've assisted in making this happen, and now I have to go ahead with the next stage of this plan, which is what she's had to do. It's what she's had to do this entire time, but now it's really forcing her into it. She has to confront Yoon and stop him. Otherwise, the Fire Nation is going to go to war. And I love the build of those tensions as we move into the last bunch of chapters in the book. But obviously, before we go to the final fight. We have a Karuk backstory to get. We have an information from him to get, and finally for Karuk to reveal information about Glowworm directly to Kyoshi. And that's what's coming up over the next few chapters. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.